Imagine you've been in ARMY for 10 years. You know every song, every lyric, every shift in their sound, from the raw and angry energy of No More Dream to the glossy commercial polish of Butter, all the way to Yet to Come, which felt like a goodbye that was never quite finished. You thought you already knew everything BTS had to offer. And then, Suga opened his mouth in front of a GQ camera, and in one sentence, just one sentence, he shattered every expectation you had ever built over the years. This album will feel very different from any BTS album before it. Not a little different, not there's a fresh new touch, but very different. And what makes it even more shocking, he called it more mature, more daring. So the question now is, how far is Suga actually willing to go? What is he really hiding behind those words? And is ARIRANG truly going to be the album that changes how the world sees BTS? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why what Suga said at GQ isn't just your average hype. This could be the most important moment in BTS history since their return from military service. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're the kind of ARMY who doesn't like unnecessary drama, who doesn't want empty speculation, but loves deep analysis that actually digs into the music, the group dynamics, and what's happening behind the scenes, then you're exactly where you need to be. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because this kind of content will keep coming every time there's a major update from BTS and the world of K-pop. Now, let's get into it. To understand why Suga's statement at GQ hit so hard, we need to step back for a moment and look at the full context. We're talking about a cover interview that landed right in the middle of an incredibly critical moment for BTS. Every member was in a transition phase, coming back from military service and returning to music, moving from individual status back to a full formation. And in the middle of all of that, the name ARIRANG began surfacing as an ambitious project rumored to be their biggest comeback yet. This GQ interview wasn't just any interview. GQ isn't the typical K-pop entertainment outlet that publishes generic praise. GQ is a prestigious fashion and culture publication that selectively chooses its cover subjects, and when BTS shows up there, there's usually a bigger message being sent. And what's being communicated here isn't just about Suga as an individual. His words speak on behalf of BTS as a collective, on behalf of the shared creative vision they've built for this album. Why does that matter? Because for nearly a decade, BTS built their reputation as a group unafraid to evolve. But every time they evolved, there were still certain lines they never crossed. The line of comfort, of commercial viability, of label expectations. This time, Suga seems to be signaling that those lines may be coming down. Suga sat in front of the GQ camera with an expression that, if you've been following him long enough, felt different from usual. Calmer, more confident, but not the performative kind of confidence. This was the confidence of someone who knows exactly what they're working on and doesn't feel the need to oversell it. In the interview, he spoke about ARIRANG with words that were chosen very deliberately. More mature, more daring. Two phrases, and both carry enormous weight if you know Suga or Min Yoongi as an artist. He also mentioned genre diversity, that ARIRANG won't be locked into one sound, one approach, one aesthetic. This is an album that, according to him, will showcase a side of BTS that fans have never heard before. And then he added something that immediately set BTS social media timelines on fire, that this album will feel fundamentally different from everything that came before it. Not slightly different, not there's a one or two experimental tracks, but different on a foundational level, across the whole thing. Picture yourself as an ARMY reading that interview excerpt for the first time.
Most people's first reaction was, this has to be clickbait. Every new album always gets called different and more mature. That's been a pop music press release template since the 1990s. But then you read more carefully, and you start paying attention to how Suga said it. Because Suga is not the type to talk in hyperbole. He's not Hosyak, energetic and expressive with every word. He's not Jimin, who tends to use emotional and poetic language in interviews. Suga speaks like a producer, measured, deliberate, and when he says something, he usually means exactly what he says. So when he's the one saying very different and more daring, that's not a figure of speech, that's a declaration. The global ARMY reacted immediately, Speculation threads blew up on X within hours. TikTok flooded with reaction videos. On Weverse, fans from Indonesia, Korea, the US, Brazil, everyone talking about the same thing. What exactly does Suga mean by more daring? More daring than what? More daring in terms of lyrics, sound, visual concept, or, and this is what got people most riled up, more daring thematically, addressing topics that may have previously been avoided due to commercial sensitivity or label pressure. Here's the part that most people gloss over when they talk about this interview. Look at Suga's specific word choice. He didn't say, "We want to try something new." He said this album will, not might, not we hope to, showcase a side of BTS that fans have never heard before. That assertive, present-tense certainty is deeply significant. This isn't an aspiration, this is a report. Which means the album, or at least its core vision, already exists. It's already formed. Suga has already heard it, already felt its direction, and was confident enough to describe it to a prestigious international magazine using language that strong. There's something else worth noting. The word mature in the context of BTS carries more complexity than just thematically adult. Throughout BTS's career, the word mature tends to surface when they're preparing to let something go. Letting go of a successful formula, letting go of their comfort zone, letting go of market expectations. The most beautiful moment in my life felt mature compared to their debut era. Love Yourself felt mature compared to HYHH. Map of the Soul felt mature compared to Love Yourself. Every time they used that word, a creative leap followed. And now, after a long hiatus, military service, and an intensely personal period of introspection, imagine how far that leap might actually go. Let's talk about the album name itself, ARIRANG. ARIRANG is a Korean folk song hundreds of years old. This is not just a song, it is a symbol of national identity, of resistance, of the collective memory of a people who survived colonization, war, and division. Choosing this name for a BTS comeback album is not a coincidence. It is a bold artistic statement of position. For a long time, BTS has maintained a certain distance from the heavier Korean identity in their music. They are proudly Korean, but the majority of their music has been designed for global consumption, thematically universal, linguistically inclusive, culturally neutral. That strategy is what made them the most influential K-pop group of all time. But naming an album ARIRANG signals that maybe this time they want to dig deeper into those Korean roots, not as nostalgia, but as a foundation for speaking about something far larger: identity, history, generational trauma, hope. And if that's what they're doing, if BTS is truly bringing that level of thematic depth into a mainstream album, then Suga's statement about being more daring suddenly makes sense in a way that's far bigger than most people initially imagined.
But wait, there's something even more interesting here than just the album name and Suga's word choices. What's even more striking is the context of when this interview dropped and why Suga was chosen as the face of it. Of BTS's 7 members, Suga is the one most recognized as the brain behind many of their artistic decisions. He's not just a rapper, he is a producer, composer, and arranger. When Suga talks about the sound of an album, he's talking from the position of someone who actually makes that sound. So the fact that GQ chose Suga to front this interview about ARIRANG is not random. It's a signal that artistically, Suga holds a central role in shaping what this album becomes. And here's the part that rarely gets discussed. This isn't the first time Suga has used international media to indirectly prepare ARMY for a major shift. If you look back at his interviews before the D-Day solo album era, there's the same pattern: measured words, mysterious descriptions, a reluctance to over-explain. And we all know how D-Day ended up, as one of the darkest, most personal, and most artistically ambitious solo projects ever released in K-pop. If that same pattern holds for ARIRANG, we may not be ready. To truly understand what might be happening with ARIRANG, we need to look at how Suga has evolved as an artist over the years, and how that evolution is reflected in his relationship with BTS as a unit. There's a deeply fascinating shift in how Suga has talked about BTS across different interviews over time. In the early years, 2013 through 2016, Suga appeared to be carrying the heaviest burden in the group.
He was the one who most consistently talked about the struggle, the exhaustion, the pressure of the industry. In those interviews, there was a visible tension between his personal artistic ambitions and the demand to be part of a larger pop machine. Then came the Love Yourself and Map of the Soul era, and something changed. Suga started to look more at peace with his role, not just as a rapper, but as part of an ensemble. He began speaking about collaboration differently, with more appreciation, more warmth. Then the August D solo project arrived, and we saw a side of Suga that had long been hidden beneath the dynamics of the group. More raw, more confessional, more daring in the most literal sense of the word. And now, after military service, after the kind of self-reflection that nobody can avoid when they spend time away from the spotlight, Suga comes back to BTS carrying all of that experience with him. The question is, will that solo journey make its way into the DNA of ARIRANG? Will BTS collectively absorb the kind of artistic courage that Suga demonstrated in his solo work? Suga's body language throughout the GQ interview speaks volumes on its own. He didn't look like someone selling a product. He looked like someone talking about something he genuinely believes in. And this brings us to the most important moment of all of this. We live in an era where K-pop has become an extraordinarily formulaic global industry. There are templates, there are playbooks, there are formulas proven to deliver chart performance, streaming numbers, and album sales. And many groups, even incredibly talented ones, choose to stay within that formula because the risk of leaving it is simply too high. BTS is not like most groups. They've already proven they can step outside the formula and still succeed. But even BTS has had certain lines they haven't crossed, at least not collectively. Until maybe now. When Suga stood in front of a GQ camera and said that ARIRANG would feel very different and more daring, he wasn't talking to the media. He was talking to ARMY. He was sending a signal that this time, BTS will not be playing it safe. And that, for an ARMY who has been there since the beginning, who has felt every single evolution, that feels almost like a promise. A promise that the album coming isn't just a comeback, not just "we're back, enjoy the music," but a genuine artistic statement. An album made not because the market demanded it, but because these 7 people have something genuinely important to say. The name ARIRANG is not a coincidence. Suga speaking to GQ is not a coincidence. The choice of words, mature and daring, is not a coincidence. All of this is part of a narrative being built, and we've only just witnessed the very first chapter.
So what can we take away from all of this? One thing is certain, ARIRANG is not just another comeback album. Every signal points in the same direction. The name itself, the GQ interview, the words Suga chose, the historical arc of BTS as artists. This could be the most defining moment of BTS's career in their second chapter. Does that mean the album will be perfect? Not necessarily. Does that mean everyone will love it? There are no guarantees. But if Suga says more daring, and if he's right, then we're heading towards something that people will still be talking about long after the first single drops. And honestly, after years of waiting, after a long hiatus and military service that pulled BTS off the stage, isn't this exactly what we wanted? Not a BTS that comes back just to meet expectations, but a BTS that comes back to exceed them. Now it's your turn. What are you most excited or nervous about after hearing what Suga said? Do you think more daring means what you think it means? Or do you think there's something deeper going on? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know how ARMY is processing all of this. And if this video gave you a perspective you hadn't considered before, don't forget to like and share. Content like this only keeps coming because of your support. Until the next one, stay tuned because the ARIRANG story has only just begun.